Coming up on today's edition of Locked On Eagles, the Eagles made a number of in-house moves on Friday and Saturday. We'll dive into the impact of those roster signings, as well as some news about the quarterback position. The Eagles did, in fact, inquire about some trades for Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson. That's coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. We're available Monday through Friday on all podcast platforms in video form as well on YouTube. And we're always talking birds on Twitter at Locked On Birds, at DiBiase LOE, and at GC24_football. Welcome into a bonus episode of Locked On Eagles. Monday through Friday. Today is Saturday. Happy St. Patrick's Day weekend to all that celebrate. I'm rocking my Kelly Green Randall Cunningham jersey. Got my green beads, too, from the Super Bowl in Philadelphia at the Fillmore. You know, that's the great part of being an Eagles fan is for St. Patrick's Day, especially if you're a big supporter of the Kelly Green look like I am, you don't really struggle to find attire for St. Patrick's Day. So going out in a little bit, I was bored. The Eagles made a bunch of moves this morning and last night, in-house re-signings. Then there was some news about the quarterback position. I'm like, what the hell? Let's do another podcast Monday through Friday, but let's churn out a Saturday edition of the show. There's never a bad time to talk Eagles. And I was already talking about it all on Twitter. I'm like, I might as well get on the microphone and let everybody hear what I have to say. So again, make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get the podcast and on YouTube, because we'll be having even bonus episodes coming out and sometimes YouTube exclusive content. So coming up on today's edition of the show, I want to get into the moves the Eagles made the last 2 days and get into the impact of those signings, because I think some are getting a little antsy. The Eagles made a big move on Monday, bringing in Hassan Reddick. But since then, there's been a lot of reports about the Eagles being active, but it's all been swings and misses, right? Trying to trade for Calvin Ridley, trying to sign Marcus Williams, making an offer to Christian Kirk, being in on Allen Robinson until he chose the Los Angeles Rams. They've been tied to, and of course, all of the quarterback stuff with Russell Wilson and the back and forth conflicting reports about their interest in Deshaun Watson. It's been a lot of speculation, but nothing really materialized. And I think some people are wondering, are they just trying to run it back with that 2021 team? Do they have another move up their sleeve? Do they have to maybe pursue trades to land some impact players before the NFL draft? To me, I have my thoughts, but they did make some moves on Friday and Saturday. They were in-house, though. The Eagles announced re-signings of defensive tackle Fletcher Cox this morning, safety Anthony Harris yesterday, as well as running back Boston Scott. All three get a one-year deal. Fletcher Cox gets $14 million in 2022. Anthony Harris and Boston Scott, they get a little over $2 million on those deals. So my thoughts on those three signings, before we get into just in general what the Eagles are doing right now, I think with the Cox signing, Howie Roseman, once again, did an incredible job recovering from those multiple Fletcher Cox restructures. The fact that they still get to keep Fletcher Cox and made it, a whole lot more, I don't know, you can stomach it more. The fact that they got out of that contract without having to eat, $40 million in dead cap in one season. We all knew, they weren't going to be able to make that move trading him because of that dead cap unless a team gave you a first-round pick. That wasn't going to happen. And at the same time, you didn't want to keep Cox on that deal and wait until he really fell off, and then there was nothing you could do. So this way, again, the restructures were bad, and the Eagles still have to eat $27 million in dead cap throughout the next 2 years. And so Howie Roseman, that's on him. This was a bad projection, but as he normally does, he recovered from his own mess really well, because you get to keep Fletcher Cox now on a 1-year, $14 million deal. You made the dead cap over a couple years a whole lot more stomachable, if that's a word. And you also just have more flexibility now because you have options. Now you don't feel like you have to draft a defensive tackle in the first round. If you want to draft Jordan Davis, by all means go for it. But you don't feel like you have to maybe reach on Devon Wyatt at 15, 16, or 19 if you don't want to. If you want to go linebacker or safety now or cornerback, wide receiver, offensive line, the optionality, the flexibility continues with Fletcher Cox still at defensive tackle. And now you can kind of play it year by year more with Fletch. Now that he's on a 1-year deal, let's say he really does drop off this season, you can get out of that deal and not have to have any more dead cap, rack up now that you have the 1-year signing. Or if he's really good, you can either move him at the trade deadline for a really good draft asset, which you were not going to be able to do before. A team was not going to give you a pick with that contract he had, and you weren't going to do it because of the $40 million in dead cap. Now you feel like you could do that more. Or if you want to bring him back for 2023, if he still looks like he's really good, defensive linemen can play for a long time. Your options are just a whole lot more open. And I really like that. And I feel like Howie recovered really well. And at the same time, still got to keep Cox in Philadelphia, which is big to me. I still really wanted Fletcher Cox to be an Eagle, but I did understand why they wanted to strike now and create as much flexibility as possible and recover as best they could with that previous contract. So overall, really loved that move. And Fletcher Cox, hats off to number 91. He loves becoming a member of the Philadelphia Eagles for his career. Hopefully he can be an Eagle for life. I'm surprised he did not join another contender, but it just shows how much he loves being an Eagle. And then when it comes to the Boston Scott and Anthony Harris signings, I love the Boston Scott move. I said throughout the offseason, if you were going to keep one running back that was a free agent between Boston Scott and Jordan Howard, it was going to be Boston Scott. I just think he's such a good RB2A, 2B, a running back 3. He is perfect in a rotation. And, you look at 2019 and 2021 especially, when you needed a playmaker at times when Miles Sanders went down. And, in 2019 when Carson Wentz had no wide receivers to throw to because Deshaun Jackson went down and Alshon Jeffrey and Nelson Aguilar, and you're throwing to Deontay Burnett and Robert Davis and, Joshua Perkins and Greg Ward. Boston Scott and Miles Sanders carried the load when it comes to explosive plays on offense, especially down the stretch when they had to win 4 games in a row. Boston Scott was one of your best offensive playmakers. And then in 2021, again, I'll never forget that Washington game, week 16, they had to have it. And who was the guy that stepped up most, especially in the red zone? It was Boston Scott. He is in 2022, that game-winning receiving touchdown against the New York Giants. He is a clutch player that is a better overall runner than he's given credit for because of his size. You get him on a 1-year deal worth a little over $2 million, not even fully guaranteed. I love that move. I feel like Boston Scott's has been one of the most underrated moves the Eagles made quietly back in 2018. And I like that he's still a staple of this backfield. When it comes to the Anthony Harris signing, I don't know. It's a mixed bag with my emotions on that one. I go back and forth because I guess it depends on what the next move will be at safety. If this is another Band-Aid year where you plan on just running it back with Anthony Harris, you sign Rodney McLeod back, you run it back with Marcus Epps. If you're going to go with that trio again, I'm not a big fan. I don't think they made enough of an impact last year. Granted, Marcus Epps, pretty efficient throughout the season. Rodney McLeod was great down the stretch. Anthony Harris got better and better as the year went on. He was kind of irrelevant for the first 9 weeks of the season. And then in the second half of the year, he did start to play a lot better. But those 3 just did not make a big enough impact to justify not making any other move. So I'm not a fan of it if it's going to be that kind of decision. But I don't think it's going to be. I think the Eagles are going to invest. They missed out on Marcus Williams, which sucks, and that's upsetting. But at the same time, that did show their hand that they are trying to upgrade at the safety position. So I feel like bringing back Anthony Harris is just one move. And I do think they're going to try to sign another free agent, if that's, Tyrann Mathieu, or draft a safety in the first or second round. I do think that is the plan. And if that is the case, then I'm okay with bringing back Anthony Harris, even though I'd prefer, if you're going to bring back just one of the 2 veteran safeties from last year, I'd want Rodney McLeod back. But I think that they're going to still target another free agent safety or draft somebody high. Even if they brought back McLeod, I think they'll draft somebody high. So I'm okay with it in that regard, as long as you don't, just patch this up with the 2021 safeties, because they need to get better at this position. They need an impact player. Now that they don't have Malcolm Jenkins anymore and they don't have a prime Rodney McLeod, they've got to get better at the spot, especially deep in the backfield with the way Jonathan Gannon plays this defense. But you also want a guy that's versatile and can come down in the line of scrimmage, cover tight ends and running backs and wide receivers. You need an impact player at this spot. Anthony Harris is not that guy. He was in 2019. He's not that player anymore. But if he's your 2A, 2B safety with Marcus Epps or Rodney McLeod, and you draft somebody high or you sign somebody else, then I can get behind it. So let's see what happens now after the Anthony Harris re-signing. Coming up next on Locked On Eagles, Mike Garafolo had an interesting report about the Eagles' mindset in free agency after they re-signed Harris, Scott, and Cox. I want to get into it coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. All right, Eagles fans, welcome back in to this Saturday edition of Locked On Eagles. It's a bonus edition of the show, getting into the re-signings of Fletcher Cox, of Boston Scott, of Anthony Harris, a running back, a defensive tackle, a safety, all staying in-house with the Eagles on both sides of the football. Howie Roseman gets a contract extension on Thursday. They're really taking care of business in-house. And so after the Fletcher Cox re-signing was broke this morning by Mike Garafolo of NFL Network, he also had a second tweet in that thread that kind of talked about what the Eagles are planning to do right now. And it did sound like Howie Roseman lip service, to be honest with you. He talked about how the Eagles are taking care of a lot of business in-house. Fletcher Cox bringing him back was a priority for this franchise. And they're also viewing, they've been pretty quiet outside of Hassan Riddick in free agency, but they're viewing the extensions in 2021, Josh Sweat, Dallas Goedert, Jordan Mailata, Avonte Maddox, that 2018 draft class that would be free agents this offseason. They're viewing a lot of that money as part of this free agent class, which I do get. Keeping those players, very important. And all of them look like they were home run extensions, very valuable, and they're going to be staples for years to come on offense and defense. But at the same time, to say that, we were worrying more about in-house and we weren't expecting to be big players anyway, that was part of the tweet. And, we got our one big guy in Hassan Riddick, and the rest, we didn't really expect to do much. Like, normally that is the Eagles' philosophy. They normally sign maybe one big-time free agent, and the rest, they live in that tier 2, tier 3 kind of group in free agency. But don't give me the whole, this reminds me of when I was a kid playing PlayStation 2 and I would get killed by my brother in Madden, and I'd be like, I wasn't trying anyway. You won, but I wasn't trying. Like, don't give me that. That's like last year when you tried to sign Juju Smith-Schuster and you told Adam Schefter after the report to retract it because you weren't trying. You didn't have interest because you didn't land them, or you realized you couldn't trade up for Zach Wilson, so you say you had no interest to begin with. I don't know. I don't really buy that the Eagles have not been big players outside of Riddick. I buy the reports that they did try to go for Marcus Williams, and they did try to go for Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson and Christian Kirk and Allen Robinson and Calvin Ridley. I believe those reports are true, that they were in on all of those moves. So don't try to say you're not a big player. I love that they were trying to go for those options. And I'm fine with how things have went so far. Like, again, normally they don't take multiple tier 1 signings in free agency. Like, they just normally don't do that. And they did make one. They signed Hassan Riddick, and that was the position they had to have an impact player this year through the first round or through free agency. And so they did make that top move that I'm a fan of. But again, just don't act like you weren't trying, because I do personally love that they were aggressive going for it with those other options. I'm not really upset about what's happened in free agency so far outside of landing a safety, because I personally thought anyway, most of the other holes, they're going to have to be addressed through the draft anyway. Or like with the offense, the whole of, not being a pass heavy offense, not being a passing efficient offense. I thought that was going to come through, Hurts taking that next step or finding the next quarterback. As much as I want another receiver, I mean, to me, the bigger focus in that area of improvement has to come at quarterback more than receiver. And not to mention, outside of the top names like Allen Robinson and Christian Kirk, I would have preferred the draft anyway over some of the other options. So I'm not like devastated about what's happened so far in free agency. It's pretty on par for the Eagles. Just don't pretend that you didn't try with those other players. I'm not discouraged with what they've done. I'm more discouraged about outside of safety. I'm pretty upset they couldn't get Marcus Williams. They need an impact safety, and I think that would have came more through free agency. But again, there's still draft options. I'm more discouraged about, why free. I'm not surprised, but it just kind of stinks. And I talked about this on Wednesday's show, why free agents have not come to Philadelphia. Again, the fact that quarterbacks might not view Philly as a great destination right now, and there might be this reputation because of Howie Roseman. I don't know, because of maybe the media and fans and the environment, the intense environment for quarterbacks that Philadelphia presents. I don't love it. And it's not just that, it's just strength of roster. There's better options across the league right now. But I don't love why quarterbacks aren't choosing Philadelphia as a top team to go to. I don't love that wide receivers probably don't want to come to a run-heavy team with an unproven quarterback. Not to say that those are the only factors. Money is a huge part of this, and there's Super Bowl contenders that are available that want you. And the Eagles aren't a horrible destination. They're a good one. They're just not a great one. So that's kind of stinks. But to me, I'm not devastated as to, what the plan has been so far. I like that they landed Hassan Riddick. That was one of the biggest moves you could have made that we had suggested on the show. And the rest, you swung out based on who you are right now as a team. And, the rest was going to probably come through the draft anyway. Although today, Darius Slay did restructure his deal, freeing up about, over $11 million in cap space right now for the team. Maybe there is another signing to come, or hey, maybe there's a trade to come. Maybe it's for a receiver like Laviska Shenault or Robert Woods, Van Jefferson, Brandon Cooks, as Gino brought up on yesterday's show from the Houston Texans. Those are options to definitely keep a close eye on. But again, quarterback, though, they did swing out. They swung out on some other positions. According to the Philadelphia Inquirer, the Eagles were, however, in on Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson. That doesn't really come as a surprise to most. We all kind of had that idea. But to hear from a platform like the Inquirer that the Eagles contacted both quarterbacks directly, that is noteworthy. And I'll get into it coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. All right, Eagles fans, Louis DiBiase wrapping up this bonus Saturday edition of your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, Locked On Eagles. So the Philadelphia Inquirer earlier today reported that the Eagles directly contacted Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson about their potential interest in coming to Philadelphia. Now, we know that Russell Wilson would only waive his no-trade clause to the Denver Broncos. We know Deshaun Watson waived his to the Cleveland Browns, and it was really only down to Cleveland, Atlanta, and New Orleans. He told the Eagles no. He told the Panthers no. He told the Seahawks no. He told a lot of teams no. But I think some people didn't know if the Eagles were, and we kind of know more with Russell Wilson, that they did make an offer and that they were in on Wilson probably more than Watson. Ben Albright confirmed it himself that they did make an offer. And then Albright, a couple days ago, reported the Eagles were the mystery team for Watson, but he didn't want to make a meeting with the team. And then today, the Inquirer kind of confirmed that the Eagles contacted both players. And so that is extremely noteworthy. Even though both quarterbacks didn't want to go, people were going back and forth like, is it the quarterbacks that don't want to go to Philadelphia, or is it Philadelphia that is not interested in these quarterbacks? After hearing all of this from the Inquirer, from Ben Albright, from multiple reports, I think the fact of the matter is, if Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson wanted to come to the Eagles, they would be Eagles right now. And I don't think that's going to affect Jalen Hurts mentally. I don't think he's going to be like Baker Mayfield now and suddenly demand a trade. I don't think he's going to do that like Carson Wentz did. I just don't think he is wired in that way. He also hasn't gone through what Carson Wentz went through from 2016 to 2019 leading up to that point. So I don't think it's really going to affect Jalen, and I think he's still going to improve this year if he is the franchise quarterback, but he should feel the pressure. Like if he was going to feel pressure, it would be right now. The Eagles have showed their hand, and I would understand personally Jalen not being super comfortable. Not that he would demand a trade, and I don't think he has proven anything, even to the level that Carson Wentz did, to justify demanding a trade. A lot of second-round quarterbacks, ask Drew Lock, don't even really get that opportunity anymore. I think he's gotten more opportunities than maybe he could even ask for. He might not even have been a second-round pick if it wasn't for the Eagles. A lot of other teams viewed him more as a third or fourth-round prospect. But the fact of the matter is, the Eagles have, through media channels and through other reports, they've kind of showed their hand. I think, and we've said this all along on the show, we believe that they believe in Jalen Hurts to a certain degree, but they will not hesitate to go for a quarterback if they think they have a better chance of being elite. Or if in, Wilson and Watson's way, they're already elite quarterbacks. They think Jalen Hurts could be the guy. They like a lot about him. They're encouraged. They have said over and over again how much promise he's shown. And I think they recognize the benefit of Jalen potentially being the guy and not having to use draft picks and more money to go get that quarterback instead of building around the one you already have. But at the same time, they're very realistic. They're very realistic in knowing that there will probably be another player that has a better chance of being elite and that they'll probably have to go in another direction. But they hope they don't. But they're willing to right now, if another opportunity presents itself, if another option is there that they know can be the franchise quarterback or there's a way better chance, they're not going to stick with Jalen just for the sake of sticking with Jalen. And that's really encouraging to me because I've had my doubts about this quarterback plan from the Eagles. But now I feel pretty good about it. After the last 2 years, trying to trade up for Zach Wilson last year, trying to keep Carson Wentz, being interested in Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, that shows that, hey, again, we believe in Jalen Hurts, but we're not settling at quarterback. We don't have suddenly this new mindset on roster building where it's going to be, everything else maximized and then the quarterback's just an okay person that just kind of stays out of our way. No, we are still the, quote unquote quarterback factory, even though I hate when he said that. We're still a team that prioritizes quarterback and wants to be one of the best at that position. We still want to be a passing offense, and that's the way we want to win football games. And I love that that is still the case. So that's why I personally am encouraged, even though I'm not encouraged that the Eagles are not seen as a QB-friendly destination right now. The fact that they want to be, that's a good sign. Now the question will be, because you swung out on Watson and Wilson, you have Jalen Hurts in-house. The question will be now, are they willing to take a risk on a prospect, perhaps, that they think has a better chance of being elite? If they view a prospect like that, if they don't in 2022, don't force a pick just to take another guy. Even if you don't think Jalen Hurts is that player, if you don't think there's one in the draft, you don't take a quarterback just because you think he might be better than Jalen. But if there is a prospect you think has a much better chance of being elite that you believe in, even if it is a bigger risk, even if the floor is lower than Hurts, now the question will be, are they willing to go in that route? In the 2022 draft, heck, maybe even in the 2023 draft, if Hurts is kind of the same quarterback as he was in 2021, next year, maybe a little better. Because I think, honestly, they're going to have to keep an open mind with that avenue because that's going to be the most realistic way they find that franchise quarterback if it's not Jalen Hurts. Could they still find a way to trade for another quarterback in the next year or two? Maybe. But to me, this team with Hurts is going to be a 7 to 10 win team. So you're going to be picking in the middle of the first round. You're going to have to be okay with taking a risk on a prospect like the Bills did, the Chiefs did, the Ravens with Mahomes, Allen, and Lamar. They were all good, not great teams that had to take a risk to do better, and it worked for all of them. Or you got to be willing to move up in the draft. Are they willing to do that this year in a draft class that not everybody loves the quarterback class, which could really go in your favor, where somebody could fall to you, or to move up? You don't have to move as high up the board, or you don't have to give up as much as other teams have in the past, including you going to get Carson Wentz in 2016. They got to have an open mind to it. They do. It's going to be Jalen Hurts to me or a rookie in the next year or two. Now that we know they can't really get somebody like Watson or Wilson, it'll be interesting to see if they're willing to take that risk. We know they were willing to replace Hurts with an already proven franchise quarterback, but will they be willing to take a risk if that opportunity does present itself? From what we know, they were willing to do it last year with Zach Wilson, but they weren't willing to do it with a Justin Fields or a Trey Lance. Will a Malik Willis convince them this year? A Desmond Ridder, somebody in 2023? Or will Hurts just steal the job? and not make the Eagles look in that direction. I'm really curious about that avenue because it's always been the most realistic shot of getting that guy outside of it being Jalen. You know, it was a pipe dream with Wilson and Watson. We all looked at it and discussed it to death because we knew the Eagles had the picks, that if the quarterback saw the Eagles as an okay destination and they'd sign off on it, that you should be all in on it. But we all knew the chances were that, you know, there were better options and they were likely going to go elsewhere. All right, guys, we're going to dive more into it for sure. Now that draft season is upon us, we got mock draft Monday. This week, we've got Locked On QB1 on Wednesday. We'll dive more into Jalen Hurts versus the 2022 draft class because that's the question the Eagles have to ask themselves as they continue to look into all quarterback options. Make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're available on all platforms Monday through Friday in video form as well on YouTube. And we're always talking birds on Twitter. Hit us up at Locked On Birds, at DiBiase, LOE. Enjoy your St. Patrick's Day weekend. As always, I'm Louis DiBiase signing off. Thank you for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for watching and listening. And let's go Birds.